I was 27 when I moved into my first apartment alone. It was a small one-bedroom in an older brick building on the east side of town, the kind of place that smelled faintly like dust and radiator heat, with thin walls and flickering hallway lights. I worked as a freelance graphic designer, quiet by nature and mostly kept to myself. Moving in was supposed to be a fresh start, new neighborhood, new chapter. My lease began in early September, right as the evening started cooling down. At first, everything seemed normal. I spent that first week unpacking, setting up furniture, getting used to the constant hum of the old pipes. The building had this comforting predictability. Footsteps overhead, doors creaking, muffled TVs at night. My next-door neighbor, an older woman named Linda, brought me cookies the day I moved in. "You'll get used to the noise," she said with a smile. There was also a guy on the third floor, tall, thin, probably mid-40s, who I'd see smoking outside the side door most nights. We'd nod at each other, nothing more. By the second week, I was settling in. I'd work late, make tea, and watch something mindless before bed. The walls were thin, but I never heard fighting or parties, just the occasional shuffle of someone walking past my door. It felt like the kind of place where nothing ever really happened. One night around midnight, I heard someone trying my door handle. Just one slow, deliberate jiggle. Then silence. I froze. After a few seconds, I got up and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I told myself it was probably someone drunk, confused about which apartment was theirs. The next morning, I found a cigarette butt right by my doormat. I thought maybe it had blown in from outside somehow, but I lived on the second floor, far from any windows. It unsettled me, but I didn't mention it to anyone. That night, I pushed a chair under the doorknob before going to sleep. I laughed at myself while doing it, trying to make it feel silly instead of paranoid. Over the next few nights, I started hearing noises again, soft tapping, sometimes what sounded like breathing on the other side of my door. One evening, I came home from the grocery store and noticed my door was slightly open. My stomach dropped. I was sure I'd locked it. I slowly pushed it open, calling out a shaky, "Hello." The apartment looked untouched. Nothing missing, nothing moved. I called the landlord the next morning. He told me the maintenance guy might have entered by mistake while checking water pressure in the units, but when I asked what time, he hesitated and said, probably sometime in the afternoon." I'd been home all day. No one had come. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard slow footsteps in the hallway. Then a soft knock. "Hey," a man's voice whispered. I didn't answer. The voice came again, a little louder. "I know you're awake." I lay there, staring at my ceiling, heart pounding. After maybe 30 seconds, the footsteps moved away. 2 nights later, I was coming home late from a friend's house. The hallway was dim. One of the bulbs had burned out near my door. As I walked up the stairs, I saw someone standing by my apartment. He turned when he heard me. It was the guy from the third floor. "Oh, hey," he said casually. "Didn't mean to scare you. Thought this was, my place." I didn't answer. I just stood there, holding my keys tight. His eyes flicked to the number on my door. "Guess not," he muttered, then smiled, small, strange, like he was amused by something private, and started walking up toward his floor. I unlocked my door fast, shut it, and leaned against it, shaking. I listened. I heard him stop halfway up the stairs, then nothing. Around 3 a.m., and then I woke to the sound of footsteps again, but this time inside my apartment. I don't know how long I lay there before I forced myself to look. The faint light from the street lamp outside revealed the outline of someone standing in my kitchen. I didn't think. I ran straight out the front door, barefoot, down the hall, and started pounding on Linda's door until she opened it, terrified. We called the police together. By the time the police arrived, whoever it was had vanished. The window in my kitchen was open. I lived on the second floor, but the fire escape ran right up to it. They found cigarette butts on the railing outside, more than a dozen. I stayed with a friend after that, then broke my lease a week later. The police said they'd keep an eye out for anyone matching my description of the man, but nothing ever came of it. Linda told me later that the tenant in 3B had already been evicted weeks before I moved in. It's been over a year now. I live across town in a newer building with secure entry and cameras, but sometimes late at night I still hear that quiet sound, the slow turn of a door handle, and freeze. Last month, I found a cigarette butt outside my apartment window on the 3rd floor. I don't smoke, and I live nowhere near a fire escape.
I'm 24, a junior software engineer, and I've always been careful about my routines. This happened last November, shortly after I moved into a high-rise apartment downtown. The building was modern, sleek, and quiet, with mostly young professionals living there. I liked it that way. No nosy neighbors, no loud parties. I'd just finished unpacking and was starting to settle in when the events began. At first, it was subtle, almost mundane. I had a routine. Mornings spent jogging around the nearby park, afternoons working from home, evenings making simple meals and watching videos. The elevator was the fastest way up to my unit on the 12th floor. Most days I'd run into a few familiar faces, a couple of office workers, a middle-aged man with a dog, a young woman who always carried a sketchbook. We'd nod politely, nothing more. One night, after grocery shopping, I got into the elevator with a stranger, a man in his late 30s wearing a hoodie and a backpack. He said nothing, staring straight ahead, and I didn't think much of it. The next evening, I saw him again, standing outside the elevator on my floor. He looked up when I approached, smiled faintly, then stepped in as I followed. The doors closed, and I felt the elevator jerk slightly, a usual mechanical hiccup. But then he whispered something, barely audible. "You're alone tonight." I froze, staring at him. He smirked and said nothing more. I rationalized it, maybe a joke, a misheard comment. But my stomach churned. Over the next few days, I started noticing him in the hallway, sometimes lingering outside my door, sometimes in the elevator with no one else around. He'd never speak, just watch me. Once I thought I caught him peeking through the peephole. I began carrying my keys in my fist, checking the locks multiple times, jumping at every sound in the hallway. One night I came home to find the elevator doors slightly open on my floor, lights flickering. I called the front desk. The attendant claimed no one had been reported in the elevator at that time. I started taking the stairs, even though it was exhausting. The feeling of being followed, watched, never left. One Thursday night, after a late coding session, I took the elevator anyway. He was there, leaning against the back wall, silent. The elevator creaked as it started its climb. "You shouldn't have come alone," he said calmly, almost conversationally. Who are you?" I stammered, gripping my backpack like a weapon. He shrugged. "Just someone who notices." I pressed every button frantically, trying to make it stop on my floor. He didn't move, didn't speak again. When the doors finally opened, I bolted, fumbling with my keys, heart hammering. I slammed the door behind me and locked it. I called the building management and the police. They checked the elevator logs. No unusual activity recorded. No camera footage showed him entering or leaving. I moved out 2 weeks later. Even now, months later, I can't shake the memory of his calm, blank expression in the elevator. The way he seemed perfectly at home in my private, quiet world. I still live alone, but I've never trusted elevators again. Sometimes I swear I see a shadow in the reflection of a door window, tall, hooded, silent. And I always pause, checking that I'm really alone.